Kieran Mcleod started his comedy career as a Make-A-Wish kid after being diagnosed with terminal brain cancer.
And he went, well, with treatment, 2 to 5 years, it's gone to a stage 4 glioblastoma. And I went, oh shit. Being quite a fat kid, you wouldn't guess it now. Chemo does wonders. Best living diet ever.
In this week's episode, we had some good laughs.
It's going to sound real wanky, but it's only because it is.
Talked about writing for comedy.
I never have been like hugely rude or anything on stage. Like I've done the occasional fingering joke, but it's only in ways that like, it's in a tasteful way where it's more about the wordplay than the fingering.
And how brain cancer changed the course of Kieran's life.
Like as much as I'd always loved comedy, like even without it, I think it was the very specific life experience of having a brain tumor and getting the Make-A-Wish that made me think about actually doing it on a stage.
It was great having our first comedian on the show. I don't think we've ever laughed that hard in an episode of The Fro Show. We had a great time. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Fro Show. My name is Frank Mankin. I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Joe Murray. Hello. And we are joined by a beautiful guest this week, the incredibly funny Kieran Mcleod.
I bet you say that to all the skinny white boys you have on this show.
We have had we've had 2 skinny white boys in the show, but
Really, on a podcast?
on a podcast,
I'm shocked.
honestly,
And
our ratio has been like more. I think we've had more women on the show than not.
I think you're right.
That's a very good thing, but I am shocked. I walked in, I saw this set up, 2 lounges in a warehouse, and I went, there's no woman has set foot in this, and I've gone, oh, actually, I think I need to just rush off. I texted her friends and say, pick me up. This is my address.
Quick bio. Kieran obviously is a comedian. Do you want to do your own bio? I feel like that might be more effective.
I can give it a crack. Yeah, obviously a comedian, or unemployed, just from the look of me. I am as funny as I look, is how someone has described me before, which is, I think that was my little sister, so thanks for that. I'm Kieran Mcleod. I got started doing comedy because I had a brain tumor, as all the greats do. I was diagnosed in 2014 at the ripe old age of 13 with a brain tumor, mid-brain tumor, not one of the little ones on the outside, no, a proper in-brain tumor. And I decided that the way I was going to get through that was making jokes. And then in 2017, it grew rather significantly, and I kept making jokes. And then the doctor's like, you've got 2 to 5 years to live. And I went, pun. Which probably they just wrote down as neurological damage. So then my story with comedy is that I was making jokes all the time living with brain tumor just as sort of a coping strategy, and watching a lot of comics on stage and stuff and going, I could never do that. And then I got approved for a Make-A-Wish because I was dying. And because I'd grown up watching a lot of stand-up comedy, despite having never been on stage before, but being blessed with an incredible ego, partially with a swollen head, I decided that what I really wanted to do for my Make-A-Wish was to go to Melbourne and do stand-up comedy on stage, having no stage experience before, which was quite a good get, and they granted it. And so my first stand-up show in preparation was at my old high school, Bremer State High School in Ipswich, represent. And I did on stage at the variety night there that they do every year. Went quite well. My 5 minutes of tumor jokes. The audience going, that's very funny, but are we allowed to laugh at that? I did a couple of open mics with the sit-down comedy club around Brisbane. Also tumor jokes, which went quite well again, just polishing the act. Did it in Melbourne, went really well. Met a whole bunch of cool other much more famous comedians than me down there who went, you're funny. And I went, oh, thank you. And on that day, much like the Grinch, my head grew 3 sizes. And yeah, I've pretty much been doing comedy ever since then. And it just awoken this thing in me that I'm like, I can make jokes about this and about everything else now too. I've sort of moved on from tumor jokes because it's a bit sad if you continue doing that for the rest. If I was a 40-year-old man talking about something that happened to me when I was 17, they'd just be like, well, you didn't die, so fucking move on. So now I talk a lot about optimism and hope, and I did a set about engineering the other day, all about roads, so exciting times. Oh, wow. That's me. Yeah, tumor-based comedian.
That's the tagline, tumor-based comedian.
Well, more optimism-based comedian now, but more tumor origin comedian.
Yeah, that's my
origin story.
Superhero origin story.
Yeah, I was bitten by a radioactive brain tumor. It was
Isn't that usually what happens to the brain tumor?
I was irradiated. My head was microwaved for a good 6 weeks, and every time I left that room, I just kept going ding, like I was. They do have a little bell they make you ring when you finish your radiation treatment, and it does make me feel just like they're going for the microwave vibe fully.
Do they make you go on a turntable afterwards as well?
No, but that would be incredible. I think that's just
They just wiggle the lights, they put you on a turntable, and they make you ring the bell.
They take you out and they just put their finger in you and go, not done yet.
Oh, that's fantastic. So were you writing jokes before the brain tumor, or you said it was a coping mechanism, but was that something you did
I was
beforehand?
never writing jokes before the brain tumor, but I was always blessed with the gift of comedy. Just always a funny looking kid anyway. Very big head, quite chubby as a little kid, and so being quite a fat kid, you wouldn't guess it now. Chemo does wonders, best slimming diet ever. But as quite a chubby kid, back in all the way up until year 8, I was bullied a little bit. So I sort of developed a bit of a wit to deal with that, because someone was like, "You're fat." I'm just like, "Oh, not as fat as your mum," shit like that. I distinctly remember someone being like, "You've got 4 chins," and I went, "It's 5. Learn to count, dickhead." Which was not. It's an unusual put down, because I still don't come out of it looking great, but it made him shut up, so it did the job. So I'd always been making quite shit jokes, and then when it happened, when I started thinking about it more fully, is I'm going to Melbourne to do this comedy. I started writing just in a notes app on my phone. I'd start writing one-liners. And all my sets at the beginning were just here's a joke I thought of, here's a joke I thought of, here's a joke I thought of, and try and tie them together somehow. Whereas now I'm doing a little bit more story-based stuff. But yeah, it was always just something I did sort of in the back of my mind, but when I put my mind to it. We got started as well after, in about 2016, we started Walk for Brain Cancer Ipswich, after I saw this Walk for Brain Cancer event in Brisbane for the Cure Brain Cancer Foundation. So I was doing a few talks and stuff at schools and parks and all this other stuff to advertise for that around Ipswich. And we had a huge turnout, and that was really cool. And that got me to actually be I can. That was the first thing that made me think I can talk in front of people, because that was before any of the stand-up stuff happened. It was just just chatting about tumor stuff in front of a crowd, and trying to throw jokes in so they don't just go, start crying on me, because that's no fun for anyone. So when you start doing all that sort of stuff, you have to sort of think doing that, but it was never anything scripted really. It was a couple dot points in my hand, and then I just waffle. And then, sort of going from that, I developed this knowledge that I could go on stage and talk about it in a way that wasn't quite as damaging. What was the question?
More about if you were writing jokes before brain cancer.
No, no. No, that's really the thing that I credit with getting me started, which is a weird thing to change the direction of your life, but I guess, could have changed in a much worse direction, so I'll take it. And then from doing those, the Walk for Brain Cancer stuff, they named me Young Ambassador for Cure Brain Cancer Foundation, brag, and Ipswich Young Citizen of the Year 2019, which is impressive. You're Young Citizen of the Year 2019, Ipswich. I do love Ipswich, please. It's a good city. I've never been stabbed there, so merit. It was just something that sort of, I think, just developed naturally. It was just discovering this, I don't want to say talent, because that sounds incredibly wanky, but this average ability to say jokes on stage that I just developed because I sort of figured, well, I've had brain cancer and I'm going to die, so what's scarier about going on stage? If I die on stage,
Wow. So then how do you go about, if you have a bunch of jokes or a handful of jokes that you love, how do you then turn that into a set or create a story with that?
Well, now it's when I did the road set the other day, it was just I heard this thing ages ago that was someone said that roads were the first sign that society had come together to create a coherent thing to help everyone. So it was just I tied roads into optimism and stuff, and also being an engineering student and quite a dork for roads. That's what engineers are, just sluts for roads. There's nothing engineers love than a good rivet.
Oh my goodness.
We go over a speed bump and we just say, that's a good curve. I'm getting hot just thinking about it. Anyway, so now I think about it just that roads, and I just start doing that. But when I first started, I just have this notes app full of one-liners, and then I just literally write them all down until they were 5 minutes worth, and then just put them into blocks so they could link from one to another, so that they'd help me remember it. Because that's another thing going on from having brain cancer. I've done chemotherapy, radiotherapy. I've had 2 brain surgeries. One much more severe than the other one. That was the one to actually remove the tumour in the end. And ongoing from all of that, I've got quite bad chronic fatigue and memory loss and chronic fatigue. I've also got the shakes a little bit and memory loss. So yeah, just coping with all the continuing issues of not dying when you were told you were going to is just such a fun life to lead. So that's not the answer to that question. But anyway, I hope I answered it at some point during that ramp.
Yeah, you did.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about your experience having brain cancer? What was that like from start to finish?
Oh, just such a good time, Frank. Just a roller coaster from start to finish, in that it was exciting. Peed my pants a couple times, threw up at the end. Surrounded by a bunch of scared people. And no, it was like when I was first diagnosed, it was 2014. I was only 13. It was.
How did you find out in the first place?
So it was the first week of term 4, year 8. I went to school the first day, and no, I didn't go to school the first day. I woke up and it was especially the first day back, and I'm like, I have a headache, and what I put down to a migraine. And Mum's like, oh, just stay home, that's fine. Migraines are terrible. Next day, I still have a migraine. It's a bit worse. Okay, you can stay home again. Then it was Wednesday, stay home again. Thursday, I think I tried. Made it through half of like the first session of school and went, I'm going home. Friday morning, I think was the first time I described the pain as feeling like my brain was pushing against my skull. And for the audience at home, that's what's known as like foreshadowing. So Saturday morning, I woke up and vomited, and we went to see the doctor that afternoon, and he scheduled us in for an MRI. And then I had the MRI done, I think the next morning or something, or possibly later that afternoon. The timeline is a bit foggy from 8 or so years ago, and given everything else. But yeah, I had an MRI done, and then I went out for lunch with Mum, and then we had the phone call from them, and they said, come in, we've got the results, and we went, oh, joy, we'll find out. We had the MRI just thinking, we'll rule out that it's a brain tumour. We'll just get rid of anything that it's nasty in so we can treat the little thing that it is. And I went in, the doctor went, oh, we found a growth on the centre of your brain it's on the tectal plate. They called it a tectal plate glioma, which is like near the brainstem, so right where you don't want one to be. So it had blocked the outflow of cerebrospinal fluid from the brain. So all this fluid was just building up, causing hydrocephalus. I don't know if it was hydrocephalus or hydrocephalus, one of them. My brain sort of swelled, as it would later, to ego, but pressing against the skull, which had caused the horrific headaches and vomiting. And then I was literally that night, I was in the Mater Children's Hospital in Brisbane, waiting for surgery. And because I've been taking ibuprofen to help with the pain, because it's the only thing that would even remotely touch it, we had to wait a week in hospital just waiting for the blood thinner of ibuprofen to get out of your system before they'd go into my brain for some reason. So then eventually after the week, the surgeon went in through that little scar there, and just used some laser, is what I was told, to poke a new hole through the brain. Through a bit of useless brain, they were told, but I'm still not sure. And just make a new outward flow for the fluid. That was a success. And then it was fine for a few years until it wasn't. But no, that surgery was a huge success. My brain went down, and then it was stable for 3 or 4 years or something until 2017, when it just went, no, actually, there was the first time I'd been having 3-month MRIs to check up on it. And then the one time they went, oh, it's been stable for ages, we'll go to 6 months. And 6 months later, oh, it's grown. So yeah, I was going to say poetic justice. I hadn't done anything to deserve that. Officers, I hadn't done anything to deserve. Just poetic irony, I suppose. Really Shakespearean shit to get we're going to go to 6 months and then grow. And then 6 weeks later, it's grown a lot. And they scheduled me in for another surgery that was going to take a sample of the tumour. So I stayed one overnight in hospital through that on the 13th of December 2017. The surgeon came in the morning of, and with his 3 witnesses, which was never a good sign, and for the first time explained so we're going to go in. I was up late last night researching this, and we went, oh, you what? And it's we're going to go in through and split the 2 hemispheres of the brain slightly, and it could make you lose your short-term memory because we're going to slice your memory circuit. And I went, oh no. So we said no to that, unsurprisingly, and started radiation and chemotherapy planning that same day. And the radiation oncologist was like, no, we asked him, like, what do you reckon? And he went, well, with treatment, 2 to 5 years, it's gone to a stage 4 glioblastoma. And I went, oh, shit. I didn't. I went, oh, I can't even remember what I said. That was all I remember is what he said. And then I probably said something stupid. And then I blocked that from my memory. I just remember him saying something horrific and then me blocking out. And then I did chemo and radiation therapy throughout 2018. And then 2019, the tumour had shrunk, but it had this cyst on top. And the only way to get rid of a cyst is to drain it and take it out. So I went through the work with the foundation and Walk for Brain Cancer, Cure Brain Cancer Foundation. We'd heard of these other surgeons down in Sydney who had done great work. So we got in touch with them and one of them emailed back and said, I can't help you, but this other bloke in the same office can. And his name was Dr. Mark Dexter. So we sent him an email and he went, yep, come down. So we just drove all the way to Sydney in one day. And the first meeting with him, he just said, and I quote, yeah, I reckon I can get all that. And he just filled us with such confidence. The next Wednesday I had the surgery and yeah, he got it all. So he went in through the back of my head, dropped the cerebellum, drained some fluid out, got it all, it looks like. That was 3 years ago and I've had no regrowth. And he's like, you couldn't need some physiotherapy? Nah.
Built different.
Built different, yeah. Cancer ain't shit. I don't know. I don't care what anyone says. No. So all I've got going on now is like chronic fatigue. I've got a bit of dodgy eyes, like they face in their own direction sometime, like some sort of chameleon. So that's just fantastic.
Is that constant? Do they always face different directions?
Yeah, so it's worse when I'm tired, which I sort of always am,
Right.
which doesn't help. But like for a while I was having to put like prisms and stuff in the glasses, like up to a 14 diopter for anyone who knows what that means. So I was seeing like full images, like 2 separate flat images, which is almost easier than what it was later when they came together and it was just an annoying difference. Now they've come together, I don't have any prism in anymore. And what's happened is they've like still separated, but my brain's just learned to go, oh yeah, switch it together, because brains are cool.
Brains are cool.
Even when they're trying to kill you.
During all that recovery process, you got involved with Make-A-Wish. So that was after you were diagnosed terminal?
That was after I was diagnosed terminal, yeah. So we applied for the wish after I was given.
So you apply for a wish?
You apply for a wish. So I'm now a volunteer with Make-A-Wish Ipswich branch as well, on top of all the other charity work I do, because I'm a great guy. So yeah, you apply for a wish, and then your doctor has to sign off and say like so it's not terminal illness, isn't the phrasing? It's serious illness. So it's for kids with serious illness. I was told I was terminal, but it's just any children with serious illnesses. Turns out I wasn't, because when they took the tumour out, they went, oh no, that they did the genetic testing and stuff. They didn't just like look at it or taste it or something. Like they're not just like geologists. Yep.
That's a tumour.
So they went, oh, it's actually stage 1, not stage 4. It just had genetic markers that made it grow like a stage 4. And I went, what's the difference? But anyway, yeah, so it's not going to hopefully, like it hadn't invaded any other tissue. It was just sort of pushing shit out of the way. But yeah, Make-A-Wish. So I applied for the wish when I was told that I had the 2 to 5 years to live, and then they approved it, even though because I was 17 when I got approved, which was still within the cutoff range of like kid to 18.
Yeah.
And then the actual wish was granted after I turned 18. And they flew me to Melbourne, and it was a super cool time. Met Sammy J and Ivan Aristogeta and all the other really super cool comedians down there who went, "You're funny," and I went, "Oh, stop it."
What was that experience like going to the Melbourne Comedy Festival?
So what they ended up making happen was the gala said no, rude. So the actual big comedy gala said no, which is what I wanted, like to be on TV doing jokes. But that's they said no for some reason. They didn't trust a dying kid to come on stage and do super good jokes. So I was a special guest act at the Raw Festival down there. Like after all the Raw acts had done, before all the Raw acts had done their stuff, I went on and did mine. And then the Raw acts were like, I didn't know we had to follow the dying kid. That's just not fair. So that was super good fun. That was still like one of the best weekends ever. It was just, yeah, it made my wish. It's super cool. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but it's gone now. It'll come back to me. Did I mention I had memory loss?
So what happened next then? So that you had that wish granted, and you came back to Brisbane.
It came back to Brisbane. Well, I got out of Melbourne in February 2020, so just in time.
Oh yeah.
And then it was COVID for 6 months, so I had no more comedy after that for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I got back into stand-up big at the end of 2020. I was doing like weekly gigs and all that, all around Fortitude Valley in Brisbane. I did a couple in Ipswich, just like telling stories, pretty much telling this story. in comedic ways, and then just kept doing that, and then started uni in 2021, which maybe put comedy on the back end for a little bit while I was just like, I need to not die from uni again.
Yeah.
So yeah, but still doing comedy as much as possible. It's just that I occasionally forget to apply for gigs. So
Yeah. So actually, I was going to ask, how do you get gigs? Do you apply for them, or how do you get
so I
that
have a lot
from
of friends who run rooms and stuff. Like I did back when I was. So after I'd done the Walk for Brain Cancer stuff, we were contacted by Channel 10 and asked, because I'd done some newspaper stuff with advertised for the Walk, like with Ipswich First and QUT and all these other stuff. Not QUT, QT, Queensland Times, not University of Technology, super TAFE. And then they wrote my story and stuff in the article, and then Channel 10 got in touch and said, hey, do you want to be on Totally Wild? And I said, yep, more attention, always good. So I did a story with Totally Wild and Tim Ferguson from the Doug Anthony All-Stars, who's also got MS and serious illness. So I did, as part of that, I did his comedy writing masterclass for narrative comedy, which was a huge part of getting me into doing it as well and writing stand-up. And then did that story, which was super fun. Did another story with them where I got to hold a dolphin, which I joked was, it was a dolphin, the wild dolphin feeding at Tin Can Bay, which I said it was great to see something else with a hole in the back of its head, which was just... so yeah, I can't remember the question. I just started boasting again. Oh yeah, wait, no, it's gone. Yeah, what was the question?
I don't remember.
I don't know, moving on.
Yeah.
I think you answered it.
Yeah, you
cool.
did.
Probably at some point during that rambling of some point during the stream of consciousness, I've had a stroke.
It's back.
I don't have my first aid certificate anymore. It lapsed like 2 months ago. I can't help you.
Well, what a guest to have on after that happens.
It was actually planned. I planned that.
Oh, good. So just in case I was shit, right? Just you could say I could just like, if I dropped off, you could be like, well, no loss.
So you mentioned before that you were moving towards more story-based comedy.
Yeah.
I've watched, you sent through some of your sets a while ago, because we've been trying to line this up for months.
4 months.
Like for so long, and it just like we got flooded, and then it just
flooded,
didn't work.
I had COVID, you had
I
COVID.
got COVID. So there's been like, this is the 4th date that we've had set for this. But anyway, point being, what you sent me those clips right at the start, and I watched them, and that was all, like you said, that was like a block of one-liners or very short jokes. You're working now towards story-based stuff. What does that transition look like for you?
So I'm still like trying to incorporate like one-liners and stuff in the middle just to break up the stuff, or like structure it so it's like one-liners but with jokes. But it's more, I'm trying to, it's going to sound real wanky, but it's only because it is. So like one of the things I love doing in my sets is I want to make people feel things. I want to like, because the thing that got me into engineering was that I wanted to do renewable energy and try and help the world. And then I got into comedy. I'm like, I want to try and help people feel good, because comedy helped me feel good. So I'm talking about optimism and stuff. So obviously when I did that road set, I finished it with some set that was like, next time you're driving, think about how if we created roads all the way back then to, help everyone, then maybe, just maybe, we can pave the way to a better tomorrow, which is in itself like quite a little one-liner. Yeah. But I'm trying to do, I used to always end on stuff that was like, just talking about being nice and being a good person and kindness and optimism and all that hippie shit that they talk about. Bloody no. All the stuff that's super important to get and that you don't just get from a comic just making 5 minutes of dick jokes, which is fine. But I'd feel quite, as much as I love seeing other comics do that, I'd feel quite hollow, I guess, if I just did 5 minutes of dick jokes. I want to do something that I want to do something that means something more than that, which is, again, very wanky, but it's just, I want people to leave the shows going, oh, that was not just, oh, that was hilarious. I want to go, that was hilarious. And a good point. Like, that was, that young man, that strapping young man up on stage made me feel things, made me reassess some life decisions, or made me feel good about myself and reassess my opinions of the world in a good way, not in like a dodgy, culty way. Like, in so, like, when I've written this, like, it's called Laughing at Life, and it's a 40-minute stand-up comedy inspirational talk for high school students, which is 3 things that don't normally go together real well. Because, like, normally the inspirational speakers that visit high schools are, like, hated by the children. But I want to try and do it in a stand-up comedy way as someone who used comedy to cope with brain cancer. To say, like, I know how hard year 11 and 12 are. A lot of you are depressed. Here's how to sort of see the light at the end of that tunnel. There's light at the end of every tunnel. That's why it's a tunnel, as it's caved in, or it's like a cave. And the reason I got started doing that is because when I had my breakdown at the start of uni last year, I sent an email to Sammy J, of all people, who I'm still in contact with, and just good friends or acquaintances with Sammy J, the wonderful comedian. Name drop. Yeah, name drop. And he rang me one day as he was sitting in a car park down in Melbourne. I'm allowed to say that, I think. Sorry, Sammy. And said how he got started was after he dropped out of his law degree, he got started doing school shows. And so I thought, that's an amazing idea. I've got something that I can keep kicking this dead horse until it keeps spitting out money or life advice. So I've been writing this for a year. It's called Laughing at Life. Find it at kieranmcleod.com.au.
You can spell that. Do you want to spell that?
Yeah, KIERANMCLEOD.com.au. There we go.
That's com.au.
Yeah, com.au. That sort of spells itself at the end. That's easy. So that's a way to sort of do an inspirational talk to high school students without getting things thrown at me or stabbed in the car park. So, so that's why I never have been hugely rude or anything on stage. I've done the occasional fingering joke, but it's only in ways that it's in a tasteful way where it's more about the wordplay than the fingering. So that's why I've written this 40-minute completely clean, no fingering jokes for high school students. I'm selling it real well. The high school students, the admin are going to say, yeah, we need that fella to come talk to us. But no, I promise it's very good to try and inspire people to be like, we can get through stuff rather than going through the dark patches and going, you know what I do? I hate everyone else for not going through this bad thing. To rather go, what's funny? Your life. The world is pretty funny. Cancer, I think, and other things that are going wrong with you deserve to be laughed at. You should laugh at the things that you hate and laugh with the people you love and laugh at the things you hate. So, because, show it who's boss. Cancer. Put your depression, but also see a mental health professional if you have depression. Don't just, I'm not a mental health professional. I don't want to be held accountable for that. I'm a master only of coping, not of recovering.
So have you done that?
First show is on the 20th of next month, hopefully, at my old high school. We've got it booked in. I'm trying to do it again for a while, but COVID restrictions, and they don't want to have a gaggle of people and someone who's vaguely immunocompromised talking to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. My line of questioning is stopped with if it hasn't happened.
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to make this how you hear it, but you might want to get an MRI. That's.
Maybe I should.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you had to hear in this medium. But
we'll drop by the Royal Brisbane on the way.
Yeah,
home.
okay. Yeah.
That sound like a good idea to you? Yeah. Just pop in real quick.
I know a guy. I've got connections.
Up, yeah.
If I go on a holiday to Sydney, have you got someone that I can stay with?
Yeah, we've got family friends. We've also got a surgeon down there who I'm sorry if you talk real nice. He's never home. He's always at the hospital. You can just go.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Who would you say that you're inspired by with your comedy?
Oh, I love the British and Australian comics is what I've sort of grew up watching. The one-liners, the quick wit, the sort of clever wordplay more than just talking about my pussy is so huge. As much as I love, which I couldn't really get away with doing anyway. That wasn't, in fairness to anyone who might be offended by that, that wasn't at all an attack of women comedians. They're fucking hilarious. What that was an attack against was American comedians who aren't. No, oh God, I don't want to actually burn any bridges. No, I just always have preferred the Australian and British style of humour, I suppose, is what I've grown up with. Whereas it's more about the wordplay, more about the structure and the art behind the joke, rather than just saying a thing and getting a reaction, as some comics do or have done. Which is, I'm gonna get hit. So that's what I've been inspired by. I love Jimmy Carr, obviously reading his book. I don't want to plug that because it's competing with my life advice stuff. That's Before and Laughter is an incredible book, and you hear about how this man who does a lot of one-liners and stuff also battled with some quite serious things. and things like Tim Ferguson, who still has MS and these serious health problems, but still continues to do shows and make people laugh and stuff, and again makes light of the horrible thing that's happened, which is just incredible to see. And yeah, that's just sort of shit I grew up watching, was the really weird Australian, like when you're an 8-year-old who can quote the Lane Woodley TV show, all your friends at school are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or rather, in year 6 and you quote South Park and you're just like, why don't you stuck my balls, Mr. Garrison, and the girls in your class are just like, oh, what the fuck? And you're just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Without any context of what it means, you just start saying shit and you just go, oh no, hang on. Yeah, I'd seen Austin Powers before I'd seen many like kids shows, so that's just how I grew up.
Me too, actually.
Yeah.
How are you moving away then from being the tumor joke guy?
Just by talking, it was, I suppose, a steady transition of talking about like hope from having a tumor to just now general optimism stuff and roads. So like I was always talking about optimism in my sets, but now it's shifted to that and hopefulness and kindness and all that stuff fully in the sets, which are topics that not a lot of people talk about in comedy. So I'm quite proud to be doing that, and like I love doing that, and I want to do it well because it's topics that don't get broached a lot in this medium. So yeah, it was just something I'd always been talking about a little bit, and then one day I was trying, I want to talk about that always more. And part of it was because one day after a show where I did tumor jokes, an old couple walked up to me and went, "Did you actually have a brain tumor?" And I went, "Yes." "What do you think I am?" "What do you think that was?" "I think I'm some kind of monster." And I thought maybe best to just sort of swiftly move on to something less, possibly, that people are going to think I'm a dick.
Yeah, so you that's your process for how you're moving away from brain tumors.
It's just to talk about the same stuff I always have, but like with the optimism and finding the light.
Giving it a better spin.
Getting it a better spin, a more broad spin as well, rather than just like my own experiences, to just, in general, this is, optimism, this is hope, this is being, be kinder, as Ellen DeGeneres says, be kind to one another. But, I don't hate any cameramen as quite as much as she does. So that's
so you've been writing that special before then. Most of your sets were what, 5-10 minutes?
5-10 minutes. That's pretty much the longest I'd done before writing this 40-minute special. And I just went, yeah, I can do that.
Right. So what was the process like to write your first long form in quotes special?
Much in the same way that I'd write the little specials, but longer. So it was, I came up with a list of bits I wanted to include, and then all stuff that I'd done in the past that I thought that'd fit well. And then I sort of started stringing it together, and then it would just evolve as I was writing it. As I lived most of my life without a calendar or without putting dates into any calendar ever, as Frank knows, because we've tried to schedule this a few times. And I just sort of fly by the seat of my pants and just go, yeah, it'll probably all work out. So I just sort of started writing, and it just developed from this series of bits into what it is now, which is like starting with the story to getting darker to finding the light to just a whole bit about expectations in life, because obviously mine didn't quite go how to plan. So if yours doesn't go as well to how you're expecting either, don't stress it. To then sappy conclusion at the end. It was just a matter of thinking like, this is what I want to say, and then just spending a year working to make it 40 minutes. Yeah.
You mentioned that it goes from like story to darkest point to highest point. How were you able to keep your sense of humor and your comedy in that lowest point as well, or was that kind of a struggle for you?
I think so. Like, I hope so. That'd be quite a dark selling point if at midpoint through the audience just start weeping.
I don't mean within the show. I mean like
within the actual life. Yeah. Oh right, I thought you just meant like during the show. No,
I assume the show maintains a level of comedy.
Oh fuck, I hope so. After a year. So yeah, in life, like, so what the strange thing happened when I was going through the really darkest parts was that when I stopped being able to make the jokes as much, I was still at high school at the time, so I did chemo and radiation therapy when I was just after I'd been told that I was dying, when I was doing year 12, and I eventually dropped to part-time and did year 12 and 13. But what happened was all my friends and teachers at school started joining in with the jokes when I was lapsing. So I remember distinctly one of my favourite moments from year 12 was I was talking about the next year, and my physics teacher just went, that's cute. You think you live that long? And I pissed myself laughing so much, and all the other students and this poor student teacher in the room was just like, you can't say that to the student. And me and him just pissed ourselves laughing for so long. And then when this other like little community around me started joining in with the jokes and stuff, that really perked me back up to making these jokes and continuing on with the theme of finding the jokes. But I don't think I ever blanketly stopped for too long. It was definitely after like a little bit when I was told that I was dying fully. I had a bit of like depersonalization and stuff as well, where I remember sitting in a doctor's office, in the oncologist's office, and he was showing that the tumor had grown. I just remember thinking like, man, that'd really suck if that happened to me. Little did he know. So like I'd still definitely try and make the jokes, but it's been described to me that the days that the people around me knew that it got real bad in my head was when I was just silent or sullen or weren't making jokes, and when I was just like, moving on. It just wasn't making the usual pun shit joke, laughing at someone falling over or something like I normally do. It's just, so I did my best, but there were definitely periods when the depression, anxiety, depersonalization list of things just got too much. But it sort of came back around just because of that little community, and the broader one that we found through doing Walk for Brain Cancer, joining in and saying like, oh, we love your tumor jokes, or joining in and saying, oh, you'll be dead soon, which was, unusual. My nickname among my friends in high school was, it went from just being called Brain Tumor to when I was losing my hair, one of my friends called me Doorknob, and that stuck. So I was doorknob for a solid year and a bit. Even though I didn't even lose all my hair, I only lost the stuff at the back because, as you can tell, I've got quite a bit of hair. And when I looked in the mirror, it still looked like I had it all, but it was just bald at the back. So people were just like, doorknob. Or as I remember, I was vice captain at school, again, bragging. And I remember someone saying that in one of my sibling in a lower grade, I've said they overheard someone saying like, oh, how does he expect to leave the school? He can't even grow a full head of hair. And then the next week I did some talk saying to everyone saying that I had the tumor and that I was doing Walk for Brain Cancer. And I hope that kid just felt delighted with themselves making fun of the brain cancer kid.
Wow. Did you do any like story writing or anything before your diagnosis?
I tried to do writing. I'd always been English teachers would say I was always good at writing, but I'd always tried to be a creative person, but I was also very, very STEM focused. Like I'm still an engineering student now, but I'd always made fun of the arts quite annoyingly. If I look back at if 12-year-old Kieran could see 20-year-old Kieran, he'd think I was such a twat, and I would think he was too, little snot-nosed twat. So I'd always been such a annoying STEM, the arts isn't a real subject. You want a job? Think about the arts. Whereas now just something switched in my head quite ironically, and I moved on to just chilling the fuck out and just now pretty much working in the arts, but still doing engineering on the side. So what was the question?
You answered it, yeah.
All right, cool. I hope so, because memory loss. Did I mention that?
Yeah. No, I've lost my question. Maybe I do need to.
You're starting to really worry me, Joe. Whatever I've got, it's catching.
Contagious.
It spreads through the air. It's like COVID.
No, I've lost it.
Little tumor particles.
Do you think that you would have become a comedian without all of that?
I genuinely don't think so. As much as I'd always loved comedy, even without it, I think it was the very specific life experience of having a brain tumor and getting the Make-A-Wish that made me think about actually doing it on a stage. Because I remember telling people when I'd make jokes or something around school, they'd be like, oh, you should do comedy. I'd be like, absolutely not. I can't get in front of a stage in front of people. And then, I think just taking away that fear and I realized now, not scary at all. Literally nothing. People are just delighted to see anyone up there. So have a crack at stand-up, especially if you think you're funny. Or if you have a mate who thinks they're funny and you don't think they're funny, get them to do an open mic, because that will just crush that. That'll fix that problem so fast. But no, I don't think I would have ever pursued a career. I think I would have been solidly engineering student if I hadn't had the brain tumor, which makes it sound like sounds a bit like a dig to engineering. I do love engineering as well, but I've a brain tumor saved me from engineering. But no, I love engineering as well. That's super cool, and that's why I do sets about engineering. But I don't think I ever would have pursued the arts at all. I think I would have been solidly sciencey.
And then you went to the comedy festival. You met all these people. What impact do the people that you met at the Melbourne Comedy Festival still have on your life? You talked a little bit about Semi J, but
I still talk to some of the like super famous people down there, and just seeing that they were just overwhelmingly lovely, the ones that I met, with like Denise Scott, Nath Valver, all them were just like super. To have someone like to finish my set down there, and then to have these big famous celebrities that I'd seen, or comedy celebrities anyway. I'm not sure everyone would know who they are, but like we certainly do. To see them come off, who I'd seen like growing up for years on stage and on telly and all the galas and stuff. Like I was the kid who'd sit there and go like gala, 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 and just like such a comedy nerd. And then to see them come up and be like, "That's how it's done. That was a really good set," and I was like, "Stop it!" And I think that if that set had gone badly, I don't think I'd be doing comedy today. But because that went well, and because I had that. And such encouragement from all these people being like, yeah, you can do this, then that was just overwhelming, yeah.
Was there something from that set that like absolutely killed that you remember?
Yeah, so because I was there with Make-A-Wish, I did a joke, and this joke I think is online somewhere. I said, radiation therapy also taught me that the comic books do have some truth to them. If you expose a child to enough radiation, they do get a superpower. They had to make a wish. There was also a joke about catheters, which was I can't remember how it goes. I can't remember the joke, but it ended with me describing a catheter being pulled out as the way a magician pulls out hankies, and I had a whole sleeve of hankies down my sleeve that I would then pull out exaggeratedly, like pulled the catheter out of my and just like really tugging some hankies out of my sleeve, which also got a huge laugh. And then I got to wave that around and feel like a real just like slap with my hankies on stage, just like dropping it like a Brazilian on Carnival. It's great.
Oh man, yeah, that would have been a crazy experience having that be your first.
Oh yeah, I was terrified before going on because like I'd only done a couple gigs beforehand. I was just rehearsing so much beforehand. I was like, I cannot mess this up. If I mess this up, I've ruined my Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was terrifying beforehand, but just as soon as I got that first laugh, I'm just like, nah, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. This is awesome. And it just went up until COVID went down, but that's fine. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you're still involved with Make-A-Wish. What's that process been like? What do you do with them?
So I'm a branch volunteer and comms manager with Make-A-Wish Ipswich branch. So like Make-A-Wish Ipswich branch on Facebook, I'm comms manager, so please pick that up. It's now exciting to see other Wish children who are going through similar headspaces that I was at the time, and talking to them about what they really want most in the world, what experiences they'd love to have, and trying to put that through and make that happen for them. And being able to sort of relate to the families and stuff more as someone who's been through it has been really helpful, because as soon as you say, well, I was a Wish kid as well, the family opens up to you more, and they're more willing to share maybe some things that they might not really share. There's only so much I can say, but that's cool. So it's been really handy. I wanted to join the branch as soon as, because it had such a huge impact on me. And then when they opened the Ipswich branch from just being Brisbane and Brisbane South and that, I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm an Ipswich boy. I'm an Ipswich Young Citizen of the Year. So doing that, I'm still ambassador for Cure Brain Cancer Foundation as well. But sadly, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do Walk for Brain Cancer Ipswich for the past couple of years, because you don't want to gather a field full of immunocompromised people and have them walk together, because that would be real not good. So yeah, it's been an incredible experience. It's weird that I put down what saved my life was meeting those doctors in Sydney, which I wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for that initial drive of me and the family around me to help out in some other way with like Walk for Brain Cancer Ipswich and getting involved with the charity stuff. That's what got me the community, which sort of brought me out of some dark spaces, and then literally saved my life by introducing us to the doctors. And then Make-A-Wish saved or changed my life and saved me from a life of monotony in an engineering job. No, please hire me for internships. Saved me from whatever life path I could have gone down without it. I have no idea where I'd be. It's weird to say that I don't know where I'd be without the tumour, but I think what's helped me with that framing in my head was to say that I've done what I've done, not because of the tumour, but rather in spite of it. Like, despite the thing that was making me feel like death at some times, I've decided to go the other route and try and share joy, which is, again, real like self-tugging of me to say. But yeah, that's what I hope. Yeah, and I hope that. So yeah, like Make-A-Wish Ipswich branch on Facebook, please.
Nice plug.
Nice
So
plug. Yeah.
What does the future of comedy look like for you then? If you're studying engineering, you're doing these comedy bits, and you're writing these like inspirational specials.
I'm also I did a lot of comedy writing for a while as well, like on my website and blog and stuff. I was doing like until uni again got too much. I was doing like long form posts and stuff to just comedy write and practice doing that sort of thing when I couldn't do gigs. And I love doing that sort of stuff and just writing stuff. So I'm going to continue doing that. Want to maybe get a book out at some point and do something like that. That'd be like, way down the track, but that'd be super cool. I want to do more specials, like the school show. Obviously, I've got other ideas for future school shows that aren't framed around having a brain tumor, but just around other things to help students. With also find optimism and joy and stuff. I want to do other festival shows and tour. I would love to take the school show, do it all around Ipswich and Brisbane region, all up and around Queensland. I'm burping. That's terribly unprofessional. I'd love to take it all around Queensland and eventually Australia, do like a tour where I don't need to bother about selling tickets because the audiences are all captive.
You could do a prison tour.
I could do a prison tour. I feel like, hey, prisoners, don't worry, there's light at the end of that tunnel, except for you, Jerry Death Row.
They can dig.
They can what? They can dig.
They can dig.
They can make a tunnel. Probably don't want to encourage that though.
Maybe not, no.
Probably don't want to encourage that
encouraging
on a public podcast, eh, Frank?
Inspirational spoons.
Shawshank, your favourite movie, or just like...
I do really enjoy Shawshank. I'm not going to lie to you.
I've never seen Shawshank.
It's a really good movie. You know what I saw for the first time last night?
What?
I saw Paddington 2 for the first time.
How does it compare to Shawshank in terms of themes?
Honestly, they both have a prison escape scene.
They what?
There's a major plot point in Paddington 2 where the bear gets locked in prison for a crime he did not commit. So
there's a lot of bears locked in prison. There's a lot of bears locked in prison in Shawshank as well.
Yes, you're correct. But no, genuinely, they do have very similar storylines.
I thought for sure you were about to say themes, and I was going to say, no, they don't. Don't you lie to me.
Morgan Freeman also voices the bear. No, that would be fantastic, though.
I would watch. I've got to watch Paddington 2 now, and then also watch Shawshank for the first time, just in like some.
Watch them concurrently, two different devices.
Two screens, and then just you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That was what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You'd be like Morgan Freeman. No, that's Paddington.
Damn it. Confusion. That's Paddington. Wearing dodgy makeup. How Paddington got cancelled on Twitter.
Poor Paddington.
The day the Paddington stood still.
He's too lovely for that.
Poor Paddington.
Do you feel like there's a direct correlation between having done so much charity work and not only being so positive, but wanting to share that positivity through your comedy?
Yeah, I think so. And I think in meeting like a lot of other super positive charity workers and stuff as well, you want to be seen as one of them. You want to be involved in that. And like I'd always wanted to do stuff like that beforehand anyway. Watching comics like Tim Minchin and stuff as well, who talk about that philosophical stuff on their sets, and I'd be like, I want to do that too. I want to leave the set with my audience thinking like they then have to write a thesis about what they'd just written to understand it. Not understand it, but like to grasp everything. But doing all the charity work definitely had an impact on the way in which I talk about it and the way in which I frame a lot of life. Yeah. Just because that's what I suppose got me started in realizing I can talk in front of people, and then through the experience of meeting all those other people, it really broadens your life experience out of just like tunnel vision. I've got a brain tumor to a lot of people have dark experiences. And then you start to like weave into. It's super helpful with empathy to know a lot of very sick people.
That does help. Yes,
it does help. Yeah.
I'll ask you one more thing, and then we'll kind of start bringing it to a close. But what's your ultimate goal? Where do you want to be in comedy in 2, 5, 10 years?
Just sitting in my mansion, knowing my Netflix special is out there, sipping from a martini glass full of dollar coins, with two beautiful women either side of me, stroking my hair and telling me I'm a good boy. No, in seriousness, I'd love to I'd love to look back on like the 5-10 years from now and look back on the school shows and the festival shows and stuff and say, I've got the message out there that I wanted to. That's more important than like anything. I wanted to get a message out there that, there is good in the world. There is always hope and joy in the world. There's laughter literally anywhere if you look hard enough. And I hope people get that from my shows and from listening to me talk. And I want to sit 5 to 10 years from now as a grizzled old 30-year-old and think that I've definitely done that. And I want to still be writing new stuff then. Hopefully by then I'll have a book out. I've written, TV pilots and stuff as well, so hopefully that'll come out sometime if I can organise myself to do that. Chronic fatigue does not work well with an industry where you have to constantly be on the grind. So I'd love to be in development of TV or writing stuff, and just continuing to do more, just to keep working on new things. And I'm sure by then I'll have some other hippie message that I want to be out in the world that I'll keep trying to push out in the world. When I was younger, I always wanted to go into politics, so maybe stand-up comedy politician. That'd be amazing in a debate. So much more entertaining.
That would be fascinating.
I don't know if you'd be allowed to could you treat the opposition like hecklers? If they were like trying to come at you, you could be like...
I don't know what the rules are.
What are the rules in like Parliament question time? Are you allowed to... How many C-bombs are you allowed in the half hour?
Is it like a PG-13 rating where you can cut it off?
Possibly. I think you're allowed like 2 Fs in a PG-13, aren't you?
You're allowed 1.
1. Oh, well, see, I would have been thrown out already. Come on, well, surely if you just go, Mr. Speaker, the opposition's a quit.
You'd be sure.
Yeah,
you
so
get a formal warning and that's it.
Yeah, a formal warning, which is another great F word that they can use in Parliament.
No, you got to be sneaky with it. You got to find sneaky ways to call them out.
So yeah, I'd love to just be finding new and inventive ways to make people feel good about themselves, which again sounds like I'm going to try and offer a happy ending at the end of this. Or I'm going to move into something kind of dodgy, but I'd love to, look back and say, not that I'd made a heap of money or that I'd been super successful or anything. That would be nice. But more importantly, that I'd said what I wanted to and hopefully in some small way changed the direction of the Earth just a little bit, like 1 micro minute of arc. 1 arc second would be great. That's an engineering thing. It means like about that much. Just the trajectory, just enough, just so we don't die before I get to retire. Or that we actually get to retire. That would be a nice top as well.
That would be nice. All right. Well, as we kind of bring it to a close, is there anything in the show that we haven't spoken about that you'd like to, or a story you would like to tell, or a topic you wish we talked about?
The conflict in Gaza? No.
I was going to say a joke you wanted to tell that you haven't.
No, I can't remember any of my actual proper written jokes at the moment, so I've just this is just stream of consciousness type improv. No, that's pretty much everything. It's just really looking forward to doing these school shows and trying to get a message out there. Everything I've done in life has been to try and acquire or to try and achieve the goal of making things just a little bit better. It's like when you enter a hotel room and it's a little bit dirty. You don't want to leave that hotel room dirtier than that, or even that dirty. You want to leave the place cleaner than you found it. That's my opinion with geopolitical politics. So I just want to help the world and leave it a little bit better than it was when I was born. And I was born in 2001, so just before that happened. So that may be a bit hard, but we'll give it a crack. Oh, actually no, that's when everything sort of went to shit. So maybe I can leave it better than I found it. So that's good. Low bar to clear. I just want to keep working on school shows and trying to get a message across to people that actually will be okay. Just chill out, be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. Sort of shit. Just that there is laughter everywhere if you know where to look. And that there is joy and hope is such a better direction to take your frustrations than anger. If we were all just a little bit more hopeful and kind to each other, we wouldn't be angry anyway. So, and I know that's not going to, there's dictators out there who aren't going to listen to that at all. But, in that case, stone them. But don't be angry at each other. I've gone off message.
You've gone from peace and positivity to stoning. So.
I've gone from peace and positivity to start a coup. Again, interested in politics. So maybe in the future you'll see me go from talking about this on a stage to, drunk patrons in a pub and, high school students who wish they weren't there to politicians who wish they weren't there and constituents who are drunk. So there we go.
Final question. What would your advice be, or what would you say to someone who is just looking to start in comedy or is thinking about getting into comedy?
So do it a lot is like the usual thing that people say, and that is true. Like you should do gigs as much as you can, as much as you feel comfortable doing. But the other thing is just to say, I was going to say what you want to say, but that could make people say some real horrible things on stage, and I don't want to encourage that side of open mic. So just think about the stuff that you find hilarious and the stuff that you would want to watch, or the stuff that you grew up watching, and try and do that sort of style of things. Like that's what I got started doing with one-liners and Jimmy Carr and all that sort of stuff. Or find the golden rule with comedy is to get on stage and open a vein for the audience. So find your own vein and open it on stage, but not literally. That's important. That's key. So get on stage and find the things that you wish people spoke about and talk about it. You can still talk about comics. There's like a thing where people are like, comics can't talk about anything anymore. I've made like a semi-career from talking about having brain cancer on stage. You can talk about anything you want. It's just like the joke should be more funny than it is offensive. And also, if you're not the thing, don't joke about the thing. That's like the golden rule. And just get in, just have fun with it, I suppose, is the main goal with it. Don't try and force yourself to be like, I want to make it into a career. No, just go with the flow. Think like that. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. Just keep going. You'll have a break eventually. As long as you're having fun on stage, the audience will have fun on stage. It's not as scary as you think it is. If you're worried about, like, if you're always been told you're funny, you're probably funny. Just get on stage. And the audience, once you get your first laugh, it's so relaxing on stage. You can have a sleep up there. It's just like a zen moment. Having said that, I've also seen a couple of people who've definitely said stuff on open mics that have just been like stuff that the boys found funny around the water cooler at work and got nothing because it was just offensive opinions without punchlines. So yeah, that's important. Have a punchline.
Fantastic.
Make jokes.
If you're going to be a comedian, be funny.
If you're going to be a comedian, yeah, be funny. Be happy. Well, don't even be happy. Just be funny. Yeah. There are a lot of goth comedians.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kieran.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
It was great. You were the first comedian we've ever had on the show, so we had a great time.
And the last.
We're never doing it again. We do have a little tradition with guests. We have an outro song. So what'll happen is I'll do the outro to camera, which will be really weird for you, but will be totally normal for them.
Yep.
And I'll do that, and then I'll say bye, Joe will say bye, and then you'll say bye, and then you get to press the big magenta button.
That one.
That one.
Okay, good. I'd mentioned that Tumor also made me colorblind.
This one.
No, okay. That's
right there.
No, I'm regular blind. I'm all kinds of other blind, but not colorblind.
You still can press buttons. All right, you ready?
Monkey hit typewriter, yeah.
Plug your stuff. Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah, you can find me at Kieran Mcleod Comedy on Facebook and at kieranmcleod.com.au, as spelled that before, KIERANMCLEOD.com.au. I'm sure it'll be in the links or something somewhere.
I will link it all. It'll all be in the description. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching or listening to this week's episode of The Fro Show. We hope you had a great time. Go check out Kieran on all of the things. He's a fantastic comedian and he deserves all the love.
Check out my wiki feed.
Check out his wiki feed. Thank you so much and we will see you next week. Also, rate us on Spotify. Bye.
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 You gotta press the button.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wait. It didn't work.
It's going. It didn't work. Wait, it didn't work. Now it's going. There we go.
Yay.
We got there.
Engineering student can't work a button.
Good job.
Thank you. Engineering students just take to turn on the sound.
1 and a 2-time dropout.
One and a bit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.